Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, with his good friend and TV star Laura Morby. How you doing, Laura?
I'm doing great.
So I want to break down episode number 1 of Triple Digit Flip. You ready for that?
I would love nothing more.
So I took a bunch of notes. We're going to go through that's just real life, and then we'll obviously give you a chance because it's a project that you loved as well. But first off, the episode starts obviously introducing the cast and all of that. Very cool. But really, there's 2 deals the teams are looking at. One is called the Animal House, and the other one I think was called Madison, right? Animal House, frankly, looked disgusting. Stuff was everywhere. I'm sure it was a wonderful smell.
Oh, yeah.
As many animal houses are, especially cat houses. I bought those, so I know exactly how those smell. And then there was Madison, which would look to be an interesting one. Maybe if you were, I guess I'll say it this way. I know lots of investors, especially if you are new investors. I guarantee you, most of them would have picked Madison.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And you guys didn't. I think we should talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Madison, for folks, if you haven't seen dude, you guys got to watch this episode. This is really what happens in real life.
Yes.
They walk into Madison. It's a little tiny house. The front house is, I think it had a great roof and a great AC. And then there was a back house. It was like, oh, we get 2 structures. And that's what it would have probably keyed lots of newer investors. Oh, I can flip 2. 2's better than 1.
Right.
But your team looked at it and it's like, over there. Like, why is there plumbing outside? Did the inspector not see it?
Yes.
Where's this crack? It's the size, I think Pace said, of 3/4. Right?
Yes.
Basically, Pace, I think it was Pace, saw all of these warning flags.
Yes, red flags for sure.
Red flags, thank you. Red flags
yes.
that caused the team to go, not worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah, that's the interesting thing is they came to us and they were like, we want, because originally we had picking a house for the show has to be passed off. So we owned Animal already and we had to sit on it until filming started. So that was fun because you have holding costs and we're like, okay, when are you ready to film this guy? Because we bought this like a month ago.
Yeah, there's another $1,000 down the drain.
But meanwhile, like we are buying and selling houses left and right live while we're filming. So that Madison was a house that came up and they went and filmed at it and they were like, let's do like a versus. So it's not like, you're deciding, but real life isn't like that. You're not like, oh, I'll only have 1 flip. And, you can always go get more hard money. Like maybe you don't want like multiple, like, extremely high price flips going on at the same time. But if you have a team in place where you can handle it, then you can deal with, 6, we're never like, well, we can have one or the other.
Yeah.
But there is a reason why we didn't choose Madison. And you brought up a great point. Madison on paper looked like a great deal, but it was not a good deal. So sorry.
It's okay.
And the reason why it's not a good deal is because of those red flags. And you wouldn't, maybe you would notice if you were a newbie, but having like exposed plumbing on the exterior of the house, a giant crack that is large enough where it's not like a settling crack. It's actually probably showing you that there's some sort of structural or foundation problems.
Probably foundation, yeah.
And then like weird additions that aren't permitted.
Yeah.
Those are stuff that when you buy a house, you inherit those issues. And then with a flip, everyone has to remember that you're selling this to a retail
buyer the end
who
buyer
has to get a loan and who's going to have a buyer's agent who doesn't speak investor. I can't tell you how many buyers I deal with for flips who have never been around an investor, who have never done a flip. And so I'm seeing stuff that's going on in the house and it is something to me that's not a big deal that we've fixed, we've remedied, is all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is not good. And I'm not going to put my buyer in this situation. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you're too much. So you have to think about that too. Like you're going to have an end buyer with a inflammatory realtor who doesn't understand things, who's then going to be like, well, you're buying a house that was an unpermitted addition, and they're going to think that whole addition is just going to
Fall down.
fall in on them and while they're sleeping and, you know, kill their grandma, you know, it's going to be something that's terrible. But you also have to think about the cost to remedy that, because you can go get a grandfathered permit.
I have, yep.
For non-permitted work, as long as it was done well.
Yep.
But in this case for Madison, it obviously wasn't done appropriately.
Yeah.
So if you can already see that the plumbing was done wrong, was the footings done wrong, was the electric done wrong, and then so a city inspector is going to come out there for that grandfathered permit. They're not mad at you because you're not the one who did the work, but they will make you tear it out.
Tear it out, put it back together.
Yeah, and so if they make you tear the whole thing down, then
no grandfather.
Yeah, all of a sudden Madison's, you know, big profit margin is all of a sudden you're paying money just to get rid of Madison.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that could have been an answer, right? One of the answers in that deal could have been city comes out, makes you remove it. Suddenly you can't get a grandfather accepted. They make you tear it out. I've seen that happen before.
Yep. And then if you then are choosing to redo it, then you're pulling permits, architect, engineer, you're waiting for that. Then you have multiple steps for the city inspection, and they're, you know, they're not trying to be annoying, but getting permits is annoying.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, and they say they're going to show up and they don't, and they fail you for weird stuff where you're just like, okay, that is so out of control. Yeah. Why are you doing that? And it's crazy.
So the thing that I liked about your episode, which I haven't seen in any other of the hundreds of flip episodes, or, you know, HGT flip or A&E flips, is you actually had a business discussion, right? You pulled out the whiteboard. I think it was Jamil talking at the whiteboard going A or B, this or that. And then you chose one. But what was interesting, it wasn't really the A or B, but you profited on both transactions.
Yes, we did. So that's the cool thing is obviously we all wholesale too. We don't just fix and flip.
Sure.
And so if we have a house that we don't want to take down, we'll see if someone else wants to take the project.
Yeah.
And we're not twisting anybody's arm. We're not lying. When you wholesale a deal, you actually like take a close up picture of like the problems and you tell the person like, hey, this is, you know, you are not hiding anything. And people will still buy it. You know, someone who's, you know, there are home flippers who might have been plumbers, you know, or are currently plumbers, and they're like, oh, I can fix that and no problem.
Yeah.
Or someone who, you know, I've sold houses to people who only exclusively buy fire damaged properties.
Yeah, me too. I've seen that.
Yeah, and where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we want to take off on this headache. They're like, we do this all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like we remediate fire damaged properties all day long. Why would we not buy a flip for ourselves where we can fix it? We know what we're doing.
Very cool.
So yeah, so it was so fast where we talked about how much money was made on Madison.
Yeah, I almost missed it. I got to tell you that I need to pay a little closer attention. I don't know what I was doing, but I'm like, did they just say they made 20 grand on Madison? I think I missed that. But
yes.
That was cool.
We did. So that was something that we, on the show, it's called a contract flip, but it's a wholesale.
Yeah, yeah.
So we sold it so that's where we own the contract. So we have the contract with the seller to buy Madison, and then we mark it up and sell it to another home flipper who actually wants the project.
Home flipper, landlord, whatever.
And so we marked it up that amount, and that's our assignment fee, and that's the profit on Madison. So just because we didn't want it doesn't mean that we were like, we don't like the house.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It's a great way to make some quick money, and then you actually aren't the one closing on a house. The home flipper is, the seller's happy, they get what they were told that they were going to get.
Yep.
We made good on our contractual obligation to them. A home flipper now has another project and they want it. So great. We don't want Madison, but they wanted Madison. So perfect. Win-win.
Yeah. So now let's talk about Animal House, because I have a whole bunch of notes that I want make sure that people caught the attention. So earlier, so Rahima, right? I have that right?
Rahima, yes.
She's kind of the design and project manager, at least in the show.
Yeah.
So when she's walking through the first property, I think with her brother Jamil the first time, they kind of go into this other room and they talk about it, at least early in the show, being another living space, as I recall.
Yes.
And then what happens right near the end is somebody asks the important question of, there's a window, enough square footage. What would happen if we put a closet in here? Right. I thought that was a very interesting thing because it went from a 3-2 to now potentially being a 4-2. And that fourth bedroom, that makes a difference for comps. It makes all kinds of difference, right?
100%. So that was Pace's suggestion, and that's always a good suggestion. So if you have, a space with a private entrance with a window to the exterior, and you don't have a closet, framing in a closet is so minimal,
it's cheap
cost-wise to a home flipper, and value-wise, what that brings. It depends on the area, of course. Like obviously, an extra bedroom in California, we're talking totally different than an extra bedroom in this part of Phoenix. But this was, about, it totally changes. And it also changes, from 1 to 2 bedrooms and 2 to 3 bedrooms, like how much value.
Of course.
But yes, having an additional bedroom is huge. And it's so easy to do. And a lot of people don't think about that. But that's a great thing to do. And you don't have to permit something like that. You're not adding square footage.
No.
You're literally just adding a closet. And we did leave it staged as a home office, but it is legally now a bedroom because it has a closet.
Yeah, it has a closet and you added a door, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? Not just
for privacy.
Yeah. So again, folks, I loved how they did that. And they actually gave you the numbers. I didn't write them down, but I think it was like 1,500 or 1,800 worth of work, right? 4x4s, drywall, paint, closet door. Yeah. Call it $2,000. And then I think you said an extra bedroom. I believe you said it was $30,000. So that's kind of an easy trade-off.
Easy. Yeah. No brainer, right?
Yeah. No brainer.
Framing in that closet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then the next thing I saw was what you guys did with the kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The kitchen was impressive, right? Because it was small and kind of like I don't know. It was a functional kitchen, but small. And what you guys did is you kind of framed in a whole new kitchen, and that island was massive. At least it appeared to be on TV.
No, it honestly, seeing it on TV, I was like, that island's like way bigger in person. But the house was built in 1953, and so you're talking a totally different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Moms were used to being in this teeny little kitchen separated from the entire family.
Yeah.
If something's going on in the living room, they're not a part of it. And that's just not how we do life in 2021. We want everyone, if you're in the kitchen and you want your kids to sit at your island and be working on homework, and maybe your husband's in the living room and you can chat and have a conversation about your day while you're cooking dinner. It's just way more multi-purpose rooms.
Yep.
And so when we walked into that house, it was just this teeny little square kitchen.
Yeah.
And it really hadn't been, it was like a time capsule.
It was.
And there's a whole story for that seller too. And it was really emotional. And there was so many cool things that weren't included that were cut. So it was the same family that had lived there the whole time. And
since 53.
Yeah. And empty nesters. Father got Alzheimer's, ended up being put in a home. Mom was there by herself and unfortunately succumbed to dementia. And so that's what you were seeing is like a whole life of, raising children and all their stuff in there. Like it was packed because that's just life. And then when you have dementia and you're not keeping up with cleaning, everything. And she had a ton of cats. And that was the main mess is like, obviously you're dealing with someone who no longer can care for themselves.
Let alone cats. Yeah.
And then you add cats to the mix and it was, that's why it was animal, but the animals had to be removed, of course, with the Humane Society, which was really sad. But we kept a lot of the stuff and returned it back to the parents. So we took, like my whole car was full, Pace's truck was full, Jamel's was full, and we gave it back to the kids because
that's awesome.
They were taken to, the mom was the last one. It was really sad, but it was really cool too. And then also during the process, like we randomly while we were filming one day had, someone who knew the family used to sell makeup with the wife. And she came through and she got really emotional because she saw it at the end.
Yeah.
And so, we were, going to invite the kids and stuff. And so they could see the house that they grew up in. And anyways, all that didn't make it to the show, which is a little bit sad, but
but you did the right thing always, as always.
Yeah. Her kitchen was a true time capsule, but it had the hallway to the rest of the rooms was in such a weird spot. And Rahima was
I saw that. Yeah.
To move it over and create a situation to where we could have a long line for the kitchen where we could put the stove in the sink. And then she put the refrigerator over to the side, which was super interesting. Because when you first walked in, over there was just a pile of stuff and like a calendar. And then the island was incredible. It was huge. Like when I walked in, I was like, okay, this is not a, sub $400,000 island.
Yeah.
And it's waterfalled and it was super beautiful. I think we had like 4 or 5 bar stools.
Yeah. It was at least 4.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think about like my life, like that's exactly how I want my island to be. I want my kids to be able to come up and have a
snack or whatever.
Or breakfast, and I can wash dishes and we can like chat about the day, and like that's really cool to me. And she was able, in a house this house is 1560 square feet. It's not huge.
Right.
She was able to create like a super awesome kitchen and family room. And so
the other thing I loved that was in the episode that I'm not sure people caught is you have real life supply chain problems, right? You envision having a huge window. And if you guys don't know, there's a real backlog in windows, especially custom windows.
Yes.
And instead of flexing the whole A&E power, which I'm sure you probably could have to get the window in early, maybe, I don't know. You're just like, nope, real life. We're going to go get 3 small windows. And again, when you make that kind of design change, you have to do different things. And ultimately that one decision made you, I don't know what, you had to change the front of the house.
Yes. So that's one of the things is like the house originally didn't have a lot of natural light. So they had the idea to put this big, beautiful window.
Yeah.
And unless you're ordering a standard size, so windows do come in standard sizes.
For sure.
There's like the typical size of windows and a standard color. And even then, sometimes you might be SOL. And so this happens so often on our flips this year where we have single pane windows and we can't sell a house because we keep getting that comment, like, why did you leave these terrible windows? And it's like, we would have then had to hold on to the house for, months and months longer just to get new windows in for this. And like, we'll give you a credit, like just buy a house. Let's move on. You can order the windows and wait. But it did bring up a good thing about how those windows that were longer, then you have, we were able to get those windows. Those were in stock. And so we made it, a choice, and it did end up looking really cool. And it brought in a decent amount of, natural light. And to be honest, it probably was better because it was more privacy than a lot.
You could choose to open one of 3 versus all or nothing.
A big giant. Yeah. And when you're sitting in your kitchen at night, you don't feel like, the whole world is staring in on your family. But you have to, I think people forget too. It's like, oh, well, windows are for the whole house are going to cost, $3,500 to $6,000. And then it's like, yeah, but are you going to have to change sizing? Because if you do, you're going to have, work on both the inside and the outside.
Right.
And then you might have to change siding or stucco. Like there's so much more expense that goes into that.
Not just the window. That's for sure. Yeah.
But it ended up looking incredibly beautiful.
It did look good.
And so,
it's just real life. And then what I wanted people to realize, even professional flippers, like the 4 of you, stuff comes up and we are in a very interesting time and there are backlogs. Windows just happen to be what made it to this episode. And it wouldn't shock me if other supply chain issues happen later.
Yeah. And that happens all the time, even, today. And we're doing a rental that they moved in yesterday, and it was like, here's our space for the fridge. And it's like, this is all we've got. And it's like a fridge that we would never put in a rental. It's so expensive, but like,
it's the only thing that fits.
Appliances are another thing where you're just like, well, got to do what we got to do, I guess.
I've done that. Yeah. I've had to put in nicer stuff in the mini rentals just because that's the only thing on the shelf.
Yeah.
They're not really on a shelf, but you get the idea. Then the other thing I caught from the episode is you guys do one special thing.
Yes.
In this case, it happened to be an exterior or I guess what would I call it? A fire pit, I guess, barbecue.
Yeah,
fire pit?
it was a fire pit. Yeah, it was so cool. There's an awesome metal worker here in Phoenix. Everyone should look him up. And if you need anything, definitely.
What's his name?
Him.
Give him a shout out.
I'm like drawing a blank. And again, I was telling Michael earlier that everything has been so crazy with like this last couple of days. So Pace actually knows him really well. I had never met him because I wasn't a part of the special project. So I wasn't there the day that they went to his studio, and I wasn't there for his install day either.
Fair enough.
I feel like his name, I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to mess it up.
All right. But well, I'll add it to the notes after.
Yeah, I will look it up once we're off of this and we can put him there. But he is incredibly talented. I don't know everything about his business, but I know what he created because I saw it.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And it was really cool. And the show didn't even touch on it, but it had the Arizona flag, which they showed, but he put the state of Arizona, the outline.
I saw that on the four corners.
Mirror image of it. So it was, because our show title originally was Flipping Arizona. So he knew that, and he was like, well, then I'll flip Arizona to the other side.
I get it.
Yeah. And so I was like, when I saw the barbecue, the end, I don't know what I was expecting it to look like or what I was expecting it to be, but it was even cooler than I thought it was. And just how you use it and how you can have different trays. And he knocked it out of the park. It is so beautiful, but we will definitely put his info below for anybody who wants to support him.
Yeah.
Pace is probably, if he ever watches this, he's going to be like, oh my gosh, like, how do you not know his name? Because Pace tells me that all the time. He's like, hey, you need to commit this to memory. And I'm like, I also am pregnant and have mom brain right now. I'm like,
yeah.
There's so many names floating in my jumbled pregnant brain.
So the other thing that hit me very early in the episode, which I was really glad the team did, is Pace was able to tell a story of his brother, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
That was
I didn't know that was going to be a part of there.
Yeah, that was a little emotional, right?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't know how that was going to be a part of it. I didn't know how they were going to edit it.
That was really cool.
He does not talk about his brother.
He does not.
And so I think that was actually a big shock. I mean, I think people do know our daughter is named after his brother, but I don't think that anybody knows what happened or that he's not with us anymore. Mm-hmm. So I loved that they did that. And that is, one of the many reasons why Pace loves Jamil so much is because Jamil is like a total jokester. And
that's where I was going to next is definitely see the Jamil and Pace, that relationship's not fake. The wing contest in the back, Jamil jumping in the pool.
Yes.
These are just two characters that just really like each other.
And they really do act like that in real life.
It's not just for the TV.
Yeah, they're always clowning around with each other.
Yeah.
And they're always giving each other a hard time. But yeah, it was really special to see. I don't know. I think that Pace should talk about it more often. But then again, I've never lost a family member like that. But one thing that I do want to, touch on is that Pace comes from a family of 12. And so when you have 12 siblings, you obviously don't have your own room. And so Pace and Corbin, his brother, shared a room their whole life growing up. So not only were they brothers, but they were like in the family, they were each other's person. And so he passed away in his early 20s, but that was obviously Pace's, in a family of 12, especially as you're going down the line of, who's close in age. And Corbin was definitely Pace's person. And so, so it's really cool to see that. And that was really interesting because Corbin did drive around a cop car.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was like, I had no idea you saw a cop car on
just driving for dollars.
And anyways, but that was really special. And Pace's parents actually reached out to me last night. They watched the episode last night and they appreciated it as well.
Oh yeah, I have to imagine.
So
I can guarantee, or I don't guarantee is a stretch, but I suspect the A&E crew and leadership made sure that was in the first episode because they probably realized that's a big part of what makes the team, that story. So,
Yeah.
and then let's close it out with talking about the numbers, right? Obviously the numbers are simplified for the audience.
Yes.
We talked about this before, right? So what I saw them talk about, right, was a purchase price, budget for remodel, and then basically profit. You and I both know that there's a lot more to it. I just want everybody to know that when the final numbers came out, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but what I believe you guys did looking at the numbers is you included holding costs and selling costs in that middle number. Is that right?
Yep. So we added it to the rental. And so
I want you to say that again, because I don't think people are going to appreciate that, right? So you bought it for what you bought it for. You have a rental cost. And then because the TV folks want it to be simple, you added every extra cost to the rental.
Yeah. Yes. And so that is really accurate. And I have the HUD. And that's the other thing too, is like the TV, originally we did have it broken down. Like, here's our holding costs. Like, here's how much it costs to get money. And here's why we got hard.
Do you just, if you don't have it, it's totally cool. But do you have the actual breakdown? Like what was the holding cost, selling cost, all of that?
I do have it somewhere. I only pulled up the HUD though for us.
Next time we'll next step.
We can do that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's but I'm looking at the HUD, and we filmed the scene with our actual conversation, like what we would actually talk about, because anyone who flips houses knows that you have, your whole, it's done in QuickBooks, obviously, but when you're estimating things, you have like a sheet, an Excel sheet where you can put in and say, well, I'm going to get hard money at this percentage, and here's the percentage that I'm going to borrow, and here's how much I'm going to spend on my reno, and here's the property taxes, and here's how much utilities are going to cost. But all of that is obviously tracked. But during our initial meeting for the house, we did talk about that. And then they came back to us like 3 months later, and they were like, that's too much.
Yeah. We got lost.
Yeah, we don't like that. We want you just to make it more basic. Purchase price, reno, profit.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like what you're selling it for minus your purchase price minus your rental, profit.
Yeah. And again, you guys include, unlike other episodes, I'm sure, holding costs, selling costs, all are in the reno.
Yes. And so the other thing that I want to touch on is we filmed scenes about how we actually sold the house, because this is 100% real. And it didn't make it, which I was kind of sad about, because Jamil really doesn't want to, during this time, it was so hard for buyers to buy a house. This was beginning of July when we listed this house. So
that was crazy time. Yeah.
It was crazy, and it was really hard for buyers. And so he's like, I don't want this to go to an investor. And this house was right next to Grand Canyon University, which does attract a lot of investors because they make excellent
student rentals.
Properties. Yes. And so he was like, we're not selling this to an investor. And so we had a whole conversation about that and why, and like what was going on in the market. None of that made it. So we got an offer from a big hedge fund, and list price, which was $365. And we were like, nope, sorry, we don't want it to go. Like, we actually told them that in real life. Like, we were like, no, we want to be a part of the solution rather than the problem. We want this to go to a family. And they were like, okay. And 4 hours later, they came back at $389, $352. And we were like, we don't take this because it's cash. There's no appraisal. And that is so crazy that in 4 hours, they were like, okay, we're going to give you what you want, cash, quick close. Okay, you don't want that? Great. Then
we'll give you an extra $24,000. Now what?
And so we were like, you know what? Like, we do know this hedge fund really, really, really well. Like, Pace knows them incredibly well. Pace opened them up here in Phoenix. He started them in Dallas. We know who they are. We know a lot of the people who still work there. They are good people, and we know what they're going to do with the house. They're going to rent it out. Yeah. And so we're like, at the end of the day, this house is going to get a family. It's going to be rented out to somebody, and we're stupid if we don't take it. That's so crazy. And so we took it, and Rahima we also know them really well. They're going to go do their inspection and they're going to retrade us. They're going to come back and say, oh, well, you know, we're planning on having to fix this in the future. And so, and this and this. And so we actually need $10,000 off this. And so Rahima went in there proactively, and she was like, she went through the house with a fine tooth comb. And that, you know, we had already done a lot of new stuff. So it wasn't like we had to do anything big ticket, but she really went through and made sure, she walked through and made sure every outlet, every light switch, everything was like perfect. Everything was done. And so they went through their inspection and they retraded us nothing. We closed. I'm looking at the HUD. We actually got 389, 352. The fact that a hedge fund didn't retrade us is just a testament to Rahima and how good of a job she did on the flip. And so, yeah, we 24 hours closed. Of course, we had to deal with the hedge fund. They've got their own title company that's the state and all their process and all their things that they have to do. So it took a couple weeks, but you know, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
And I went to the property after to take my lockbox off, and it was so funny because we used to do the construction for them. And so I walked up and they were painting the whole house gray and white because we had white walls and we had these really cool black doors. They were taking out all of our ceiling fans.
Oh, wow.
And I was like so confused, and he was like, that's what, and so after I left, because like I don't care either way, like
yeah,
change stuff. I don't
their
care.
house now, right?
But it was just interesting because the house is perfect. And not only that, it would have rented to somebody with black doors. They probably would have thought it was cool because it's like a design feature. And white walls are more popular than gray walls these days. But we know that this hedge fund has this is what we want our rental properties to look like. And so cases like it's twofold. It's number one, you've got a whole bureaucracy of people who are all responsible for these decisions, all the way down to this painter that showed up, this handyman that makes everything rent ready.
Yeah.
And so somewhere during that chain of command, someone wasn't like, you know what, I think that we can sell or rent the house just fine.
As is, yeah.
Great. We don't need to spend the money. He's like, it's that, or it's because they use the same color, the same
every single time,
the same fans. And he's like, so when they are doing property management repairs and work, their guy is running around to the hundreds, if not thousands of properties that they own in Phoenix. And he has a bucket of paint.
Exactly.
With the same colors. And he's like, to be honest, it's probably that.
It is definitely that. They're basically, if you Southwest Airlines only flew 737s forever. I don't know if they've changed, but because they wanted to simplify all the parts, right? Every Southwest jet was the same. All the parts were the same. The mechanics were the same. They could move people around and not have to recertify. That's exactly what this hedge fund is doing.
And so it's like, hey, we've got a drywall repair in this rental. Oh, okay, well, got the And so efficiency wise, it makes sense because when you have handymen running around and doing these little repairs, you're paying, $100 a trip charge, and then you're paying for their time and their material. And then you have these guys go sit at Home Depot and order paint for a couple hours. And you're just like, oh my God, like we need to get these jobs done. So this makes perfect sense. But all of that I thought would have been really funny to include. But of course we only have 45 minutes to handle it. But the show is, if anyone can tell, the show is real. This is a real house. This is a real thing. This really happened. And I know it sounds crazy to make that kind of profit. And
let's remind people, what was the bottom line?
I don't remember what they said on the show because
I think it was 116. I think. Yeah.
So we have our. What did they say? 116.
I think it was 116. I think.
Okay. Yeah. Because our HUD. I mean, obviously the HUD. Like that's the other thing too. I think it's so funny when home flippers are like, making bank on this flip, and they show their check from the title company. It's but out of that is what you said on your rental. Purchase,
reno, holding costs,
your utilities. So like the check back from the title company was over 200 grand. It's well over 200 grand, but then you take out your rental and your holding costs and your utilities and stuff. And so
very
that's
cool.
the real story. But I love that, especially for people who flip sub $1 million homes.
Yeah.
Because those checks that come back are huge. Like it looks like someone made $500,000 on a flip. And it's like, yeah, you probably spent $250 to $300 for
Exactly.
that house.
Exactly.
And you probably held on to it for 8 months because those houses don't sell fast.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
sure, like, yeah, let's all think that you made, $600,000 on that flip. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was pretty impressive. I mean, when I saw that house in the beginning, I'm like, I've been doing this a while. I don't know Arizona at all. I'm like, how the hell are they going to make $100,000 on that house?
I know.
You did.
Yes. That's the thing too, is that like, one of the reasons why I don't like home flipping shows is because it's like either people are over improving, where you've got like Joanna Gaines in Waco, Texas, doing these like super customized,
things, one of a kind things,
2,000 square foot homes where she's putting in materials that you put in $1 million plus properties. So of course the house looks like just phenomenal, like because like who would do that? Nobody would do that. Or you have like home flippers who are doing like these like super cool like $1 million flips, and like, yeah, it makes good TV. It's really interesting. A lot of cool stuff happens, and you have a designer who's showing up, and you're picking all of this like super beautiful material. But those aren't really like the money makers. These churn and burns, these 60 to 90 day turnovers for a house that just looks normal can be your biggest money maker, and you're turning them over way quicker.
Yeah.
And the amount of headache that goes into these, and your end buyer isn't a $1 million plus buyer who's like super picky and wants to, and they're so upset that you didn't use European white plank, white oak, like it's just like, why the amount of stress that you're going to go through to do that is crazy. And then it's like, why not just do a house like this and just a normal middle-class neighborhood, and it just makes way more sense, and you're done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I love the episode. I love what you guys are doing. I look forward to episode number 2, which should still be Saturday at noon. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the same time. And I don't even know what house number 2 is. I saw the description and I was like,
not sure what that one is.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see all of them, and all of them have a story. I'm happy to share a little bit of insight behind all of them.
Yeah. And
they were all really fun. Every house we flip is fun. Every house is like a story. I mean, we've got 21 projects going on right now.
Wow, 21
for Pace. Aside from Jamil, and like each one of these is just so unique and so interesting, and it's fun. It really is fun, and it's great money. And I can't say enough about flipping houses. It's great, and it seems like, oh, I can't do that. It's only on TV, and it's not. And I hope our show shows you that, like, anybody can do it. And you don't have to be Joanna Gaines. You don't have to flip $1 million properties. You don't have to get into all of that liability and all of that expertise. Most people could pick out some finishes that are comparable to what we picked out in Animal.
Yeah.
Rahima has good taste, but she's not an interior designer. She doesn't have a degree in that. And I think that, and it's fun. It's fun to pick that stuff and see it come to life in an actual house. And you're like, wow, I picked that flooring, that countertop, and like, look at the cabinet color. That actually looks good. And, have some buyers give you some, gas you up and make you feel good about your choices. And then you make money on top of it. It's just fun.
Yeah. I love everything about the episode. It's far realer than any of the other flip shows. Again, A&E noon Saturdays, triple digit flip. Laura, thank you very much today. Again, folks, remember, go give Pace Morby a shout out. He's doing 26 hours. He's nuts, A to Z of getting started. Episode number 2 was flipme.com. Go register and see if you win. And of course, episode number 1, the Animal House. Thank you, Laura.
Oh yeah, thank you.